Hi, I'm Kawa, and this is QWA Podcast. In this show, we invite friends from the architectural fraternity for a casual conversation. From design think tank to integrated practice, we discuss the trials and tribulations of architectural pursuit. We hope this informal sharing will spark conversation among the listeners. Let's begin. Hello, everyone. Today we have Hedzril Jaffar, a partner of HXN Architects, which is meant for Hedzril and Nick Architects. And I personally looking forward to have this conversation because since early this year, I actually been co-teaching in the same studio with him. But unfortunately, due to the unit system, we are, having very little exchange or discussion. So maybe we can, talk a bit more today. Hedzril, how are you doing today?
I'm good, Kawa. How are you yourself?
Yeah, I mean, everyone is definitely trying to balance working at home, and hopefully we'll, eventually get past this pandemic. We can start with your personal journey. I mean, of course, everyone once worked as a salaried architect before or worked with other, practice before. And I think what we want to know is what is the story behind or the event or the scenario that actually trigger the journey into establishing your own practice as Hedzril Architect.
Okay. Basically, I think anyone would tell you, or most of the time, that you get your part 3, and then you find an avenue to start your own firm. But I think to me, passing my part 3 exams was just part of it. It's not the whole story. I think it's just a matter of when. I mean, part 3 you can take it unlimited time. It's not like you take 3 times and then you get blacklisted. You can take like 100 times and then eventually you pass. You just have to pass it lah. So it's just a matter of time. I think importantly, it's more of what transpired at the start of my career. I worked in a large commercial office in 2010, and it's a collaborative office. It's just a lot of bosses, a lot of groups. So the thing about that office is the energy from the bosses and people around you, they kind of rub off. They have this vibe that we can do anything as architects, and I quite like that, especially the big bosses lah. They just have that energy which just translates to you, and I'm sure to the rest of the team, that office. So I think from there you kind of admire. You cannot not admire. I think if you don't admire, and it doesn't take long. I mean, within a couple of years, I just straight away know I would want to kind of experience that one day and give out that same energy that they have, not necessarily in the same sort of setup, but just simply be, whether you are a one-man show or at least you have that energy that you can translate to the rest of your environment. So that's where I started, and then somehow when you have that goal and the ambition, and you really want it, like you really do want it, the universe just starts to find its way to make it happen. I really believe in that. It's like doa lah. Right. For example, the Calico City project, the bridge fell down, and then a lot of other incidents that happened, and all that, it kind of like paved the way to me to kind of take my part 3, and then of course people around me as well, my friends, and somehow the world just seems to collaborate with me to make it happen. It's not like I made it happen myself. I'm sure you understand that too, yourself. So that is pretty much my story. Nothing tragic, nothing too.
Yeah, with definitely with a new established firm, there's a lot of groundwork need to be done before it turn profitable. And I think you can't deny that there's a lot of pressure on daily day-to-day practice. And this is some of the realities of life as well that we can't escape. There is mortgage, our hire purchase loans, our cars, and of course our bills and other commitments. So do you think that is the major challenge for young practice? And is that the kind of pressure that leads you to take commission without thinking too much? And what are the mindset do you think we need to apply in order to overcome such challenges?
Well, that is a very common question to any kind of business, to kind of let go, right? Of safety net. And to me, it's no different. Of course, I was in my almost mid-30s, and you have a kid, family, your car, and your house, and all that. It's not an easy decision to make. And to me, that's you are spot on. That is the biggest sort of challenge to start, other than having to find a job.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, basically, it's quite simple. You just have to do it. You have to start. It may sound very cliche, like Nike, just do it. It really is. Just do it.
Yeah.
you of course you have to strategize here and there, but all this planning will materialize the moment you start.
Yeah.
So all of us, I think maybe yourself, we all do a bit of freelancing,
at the same time.
Get a bit of money together. When we were employed as a salaried architect, but to kind of step into the unknown of letting your salary off away and just relying on your freelance becoming your sole income is something that is very scary. But at the same time, to me, the way I look at it is, some people say that I started very young. I would think that it was the perfect timing, regardless of what happens to the world, the economic and the political, the pandemic. I mean, the pandemic came later, but the way I like to think is that, what I wanted to be when I'm 40,
right,
or things that I wanted to do when I'm 40, I want to do it now. So when I'm 40, I'm actually quite good at it. So that's how I view myself, which is why I decided to just let go of everything and then just start. And then the rest I just figure out one by one.
I think a lot of other established firms today also start young. If I'm not mistaken, Veritas got the commission for KLIA supporting buildings when the director was 35 years old, if I'm not mistaken. So obviously that is maybe exceptional or 1 in a million kind of story, but it is possible. So
just to intervene, I think I kind of accepted that we live in a different era. Back in the 90s, early 90s, there are not many architects. We live in a totally different environment. I try not to compare myself to them. It's just pointless, really.
Yeah. I think that's a good, realization in order to ensure that we keep ourselves sane. But running a practice definitely, challenging. And after a few years, or maybe I'm not so sure, 1 or 2 years, you decided to partner up with architect Nick Amirul, which is the partner to, eventual formation of HXN Architects. So what is the appeal of the amalgamation of resources and effort? And do you think there is an apparent benefit since the establishment as a partnership?
Yeah, I think you just mentioned it. resources and effort. I think that's
Yeah.
that's pretty much the major composition of being in a partnership or a group, so called. But I think importantly, I practiced for about almost 2 years before almost 2 years now before I decided to um, go into partnership with Nick. The thing about design and work is all about collaboration. I mean, that's how I've been, what do you call it? That's how I've been polished in back in the old office. You know, it's all about a lot of people working on one or two things, and two brains is definitely better than one. Um, and as much as it's like putting two bad ideas to become one good idea. So I really do believe in that spirit. I think me and Nick, we have different attitude towards design and business and everything almost. So to me, it's really pointless to find someone who is exactly the same as you. You're just gonna have too many cooks in the kitchen, you know. But I believe that partnership, a good partnership, is about having two different parts of a business or a puzzle, and you put it together. It may not necessarily work. It may work well. We don't know, but I think that so far is going okay. But I think importantly, Kawa,
Right.
as personally, I struggle on my own mentally. I it's just mentally you are on your own. You everything every single responsibility falls on you, big and small. You know, from the quality of work that you deliver all the way down to the cleanliness of your toilet in your office.
Yeah.
Um, so it's really something that I it bothers me after a year and a half. And I think it's something that I need to um, resolve. And one way of doing it is to kind of transfer that responsibility to someone else as well, you know, and sort of it allows you at times take a back seat, um, and just rest. I think that's important. I mean, I think it's personal. Some people they have the capacity, but I think for me, I may have, but I think I will definitely do a lot better in a group.
Right. I think there is definitely a lot of challenge, especially when you are stretched too thin, covering from writing letters, then going down to PBT, and then again you have to model your projects, and then basically doing some of the toilet detail you mentioned, and there is definitely
I didn't mean toilet detail. I really
huh?
mean like cleaning toilet.
Oh, cleaning the toilet.
But you have to
Okay.
call the auntie, make sure she
Right.
comes.
Uh-huh. Okay, so yeah, it's also another problem of a small practice is definitely the amount of work, and I think you are familiar that is the common industry practice where proposal usually been requested as part of this bidding process per se. So it may come from government or personal or private clients or even big corporations, and it is fairly, for the lack of a better term, rampant. It almost come in every week, more or less. So in your case, how do you evaluate or ascertain the legitimacy of the RFP, and maybe you can give some not guideline lah, but some indicative of what we should look for when we evaluating RFP before we participated in one.
um, Now, I think first and foremost, I believe in what looks too good to be true is very much too good to be true, lah.
Right.
So when we look at a proposal that came to your table, regardless of how reputable the person, you kind of have to really put a reality check to it and wonder. Yeah. You're not, I mean, I'm not a retired Norman Foster, doing freelancing. The reality is people would want ideas for free, and then you are just one of their prey. So that is reality. So to me, really is, if that happens, you just, I ignore it lah, if it's too good to be true. But there are several occasions where the client, sometimes a friend, they come to you and they have this proposal and they have these inquiries, and they want to do this thing which is fairly big, fairly sizable for your kind of level or your size of practice, and you kind of you are quite interested. I mean, that deep down inside, you just think, oh, it may just happen, and it does happen like that lah. So first of all, I would look at the client themselves. I think that's the most important thing. You must be running your own practice, or your own business. You must be able to read a person. It's a skill that you kind of polish yourself. You can read books. I read some books, but I think pretty much it's about training yourself to be observant, which is, as architects, we should be. But as opposed to a building, it should be to a person and people, and not a group of people, but an individual. So when you talk to an individual, you can kind of sense their honesty or seriousness about project. And secondly, of course, you have to look at them in terms of finance, whether they have money or not. If they are just looking for free service, then I would most likely shy away. But some of them, they offer some token, and some of them even sign a contract with you, to kind of legitimize and promise for the payment, not necessarily guaranteeing the outcome or the payment being made. So to me, first of all, you have to really decide whether you want to pursue that particular client or not. Secondly, only then you look at the project. No, sorry. First is the project, the reality of the project. Secondly is the client, and then of course the scale and time lah. So whether you have the capacity, and at times you just have to be quite realistic about your capability. If you're on your own, whether you can deliver, because you would have other clients who you need to service, which are paying you, and you need to give them a good service. So whether that will jeopardize your kind of service level to this, in order to kind of get this so-called request for proposal underway. So to me, those three things are the main issue. So the project, the client, and the time. In terms of the fees, put it this way, I don't really expect much from fees of this. If you do a 1 billion master plan, surely they won't pay you like what scale of minimum fees suggests. It's normally a region of less than 100K or 50K below. So fees is really something that you shouldn't be relying on. As long as you get something to cover your costs, I think it's acceptable. There's no actual guideline in terms of how much you can charge for this per square feet, because it's very, for a big project, or normally free RFP is big project, like not small projects. They are very subjective in terms of the types. They always want you to suggest. So there's no direct formula.
Right. Speaking of fees, there is a seminar by PAM president, which is like a month ago maybe, that talk about the title is my fee too high? That is the title of the talk, and there is some pointers which he suggests that we try to work backwards, meaning from our cost, just like you mentioned, from calculation the formula to man-month calculation, which is still covered under the Act. And eventually, after generating the figures using the multiplier and whatnot, you get a figure rather than just a formula, which is fairly opaque to clients. He said. So at least when client asks why your fee is such and such, you can open up your books and show the multiplying and then all those hours and efforts going to undertook the project. Is that how you approach fee proposal, or is different? And sometimes client comes with the quote unquote, there's more work coming after this. Should we took that as a consideration for discounting this engagement, or we should ignore that aspect?
So basically, in our office, we start with there's two ways of looking at it lah. One is real jobs and speculative jobs. Right? So let's start with real jobs. So real jobs, genuine client, we go with scale of minimum fees. We offer based on the Act and all that lah. And quite often the client would want some other consultants to be parked under the architect, so we would add on additional services and stuff. So then they would negotiate lah. So to me it's we don't really use man hour multiplier so far. I think there are some occasions, but very very minimal lah. Mostly we use the scale of minimum fees at this stage of practice. For young practice, it's about proving yourself to the industry that you're capable, and by having a project under you, you can then deliver, and at least you can have something that is built, which is, I think, to me, is quite important. Right?
Yep. In the same seminar that I mentioned just now by Dato' Izumi, there is an audience member that actually asked a question with regards to the current government job procurement method. Previously, it was by rotation, but currently it's based on tendering professional service, tendering consultancy service. And I think, of course, in a way, it improved the transparency of procurement of contract. But there is also a phenomenon where smaller practice, younger practice has been simply outclassed by this established firm. Not because of they are a bit more, I'm not saying A more competent than B. I'm just saying by the sheer number of competing resources like capacity, manpower, PC, office, and all this collection of track record per se of completed projects. And I'm not so sure about you guys, but I think we talked a bit about this registering on government procurement system, which is here with what we call it MOF certificate lah. Do you foresee yourself in the future trying to undertake government contract? And if you do, what are some of the strategies you think that can cover the shortfall or the things that young practice lack, such as experience and number of people working in the practice?
Yeah, on that topic, ironically, we have recently just successfully registered ourselves with MOF, so we got our certificate. We haven't tendered any job yet.
Yeah.
We had previously quite a lot of inquiries, not a lot, maybe one or two inquiries that requires MOF registration, which we didn't have. So when we tendered in, we had to, there's some collaboration works that needed to be done with other party and all that. So eventually we decided to register lah. But I think on the topic of whether young practice will have an opportunity, of course, if they tender out and then they look at the portfolio, definitely you will be outclassed. Simple enough. I mean, if I were to stand at the side of the government, and then to kind of assess, I would have to take that into account. It's just wrong if you were to kind of, oh, this firm, they have two good-looking dudes, let's pick them. You cannot do that. So, and of course, it's also wrong to kind of offer very low margin. It will be very difficult for young officers to kind of put themselves in, unless they are lucky lah. But I also believe that government projects, there are a lot of levels, there are a lot of size and types, and surely when they tender out, there's a certain spectrum that they are aiming. So I like to believe that opportunity is there, but I'm more of this on the side of it's not really there for me. But I would want to be in that particular spectrum one day, and even better if there is a policy where a certain type of project is dedicated or reserved for startups, for example. Young architects below 40. I always believe that we should put ourselves in a bracket. As much as we don't like being in a silo, but in reality, as an architect, you need to categorize yourself.
Apparently out there, it's like a free-for-all boxing, heavyweight versus leatherweight, featherweight, semua banyak je. And I'm sure there is a lot of cost that is incurred based on time, like salary and rental. And that definitely will put pressure on the financial situation of a young practice. And since invoices or since the work, the job cycle is not complete, or as a established firm, maybe they have job on each stage per se, they get constant billings. How do you ensure that your very low frequency billings able to sustain? How do you manage the revenue? Do you spend, or do you keep most of it for future expenditure, or how do you work around the infrequent billings?
How do you know our billing is infrequent?
That's good. If you can shed some light on your situation, that will be great.
Okay, well, it's not really something there's nothing magical about it. Payments are going to be here and there. I think importantly is about planning ahead. I mean, financial and cost overhead aside, it's really about knowing where your money is going to go and for how long. So as long as I know that I'm capable of sustaining for a certain number of months, for example, or a year,
right.
With the guarantee that there will be some future recurring fees coming in at a certain point of the future, in the future, then I think that is comfortable enough. I mean, I don't know about you, but in our case, as long as we can sustain and do our work and pay ourselves comfortably.
So another thing is when we talk about small projects, or in particular private residence, for example, there's a very little knowledge on the public sphere of what actually architects do. They don't really understand, sometimes extension, do we need an architect? Suddenly they've been told by the PBT they need one. And basically they just adopt a simplified version of what architects do, which is drawing plans or, a design per se. And definitely there is some gap between the understanding of public. I mean, this is like not big corporation, not developers lah, definitely not, but private owners and whatnot. And sometimes due to the fact that there's a gap of understanding, we need to justify our fee. For example, like a renovation, they usually they're quite surprised why it take why is it so much. Sometimes adding another story will involve KM and all these things. That's why sometimes it's escalated. Other professionals, doctors, lawyers, I mean, they are hardly questioned about their professional fee, and we on the other side have to justify every cent that we put on our fee proposal. What are your take on this matter?
I think it's quite similar to, okay, first of all, in terms of the understanding of the law, I think that is something not just within within the building industry or doing renovation and all that. I think it across the board of any law. Our society, we lack that level of education, um, and you just have to look at the kind of um, environment that we are taught into, or brought up. I've never been taught about law in school, basic laws. You are told this is wrong, this is right, but in a kind of like legal or very technical way, it was never really taught. So I think that is number one. Number two is justification of fees. It's a bit like, I think it's a bit like arts. Um, Design is very subjective, right? I mean, even a simple, to come up with a simple solution, one can imagine, or the client can imagine that, oh, that's so simple, just adding a column, I can do that. But it's really, that's not the point really. I mean, to come up with that solution, it requires a lot of, a lot of education and skill, knowledge, and experience. So they don't see that, and to me, it's really, it's not so much about educating them. I think number one, is good that they are actually asking the question. I think we have to look at it in a very positive way. They come to you, I think that is already a good thing, rather than just getting a contractor to do it and then get away with it. I think once they come to you, I think that is the point where an architect has the duty to educate, and then pass on the kind of knowledge, and hopefully that will ripple across the society. Even if it's not part of our service, for example, it's land matter. I often come across that kind of individuals, normally like retired couple who wants to do this and that, but they don't necessarily engage you. But the fact that they ask the question, I would feel good that I am actually contributing to the society, and not getting paid.
Yeah, and I think that also leads to another not problem lah, but situation or scenario that there's a lot of design and build contractors, or even simply contractors, has no restriction on self promotion or advertisement, and they can flood social media, for example Facebook. And there's a case recently talking about constructing a house, and they could prey on those couples that you mentioned just now, and easily get appointed, and they can become they instead appoint the architect. So architect now become a second fiddle in a way. Do you think this restriction for consultancy marketing can be improved? We can easily miss the target market. For example, we can promote through magazine writings or article, but our target market is definitely the one that going to read those articles are definitely another architect, very unlikely a public member. So we could easily miss our targeted audience because of that restriction. So what do you think about it? Should we have a look at this restriction of marketing?
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, the simple way to put it is like architect normally kita short sendiri kan. We write things for ourselves.
Right.
So that is something that we actually discuss a lot in the office, me and Nick. How do we, because I'm not interested in architects, honestly. I go to Datum, for example, to meet friends. I think we should, as architects or architecture itself, it should really be mainstream and not some group, exclusive group. So in order to do that, I think the main issue with the main stigma with society is that they are afraid to approach architects because we are considered exclusive, therefore expensive. because they don't understand of our fees and all that. I think one avenue that have been developed recently is an app to kind of calculate your fees, like that, by one of our friends in the field. I think that's a kind of a good way to start, but it needs to reach far enough that the whole society gets receive the ripple, and that can only be done if envelope of fees has that have a bit of a flexibility in terms of packaging. Like this day and age, you don't buy full-fledged HR service from certain HR companies. People want chunks that they can chew, and they can chew in one go. It's not like multiple chunks that they don't need. So I think our service should be doing the same thing. Maybe it's just about that first part, understanding the knowledge. Where do you go? Okay, so if I go an architect, I don't need to hire them. I can just pay them a token to, for example, get an opinion.
Consult. Yeah.
Of course, there is, but it's not. It's at the back page of the scale of minimum fee of whatever you call it lah. I think there should be some sort of clear guideline of the society or the community to kind of engage an architect in a very what do you call it? Not say informal lah, but it's like pergi kedai beli coklat. That kind of thing. It's very approachable. You just give a call. Okay, how much for this fee? Delegate, for an opinion, for example, and then you get certain written confirmation of that particular information. There's a certain deliverable that you receive by going through the process. But it must be a very, very simple process that people are more receptive to, rather than being having to go to an architect's office, read a copy, sign a contract. I think our approach in terms of our fees and packaging has to be a bit more creative.
Yeah, definitely. There is something that we can improve on, especially when we dump the letter of appointment or letter of offer. It's filled full with condition of engagement and whatnot. It overwhelm potential client. Okay, thank you, Hedzril, for your sharing. I think that is all that we have for this episode. Listeners, please like HXN Architects on Facebook, or you can visit their website, hxnarchitects.com. And please subscribe to QWA YouTube channel. And thank you for joining us. Until the next time. Take care. Bye.
Thanks, Kawan. Bye.
If you enjoyed the session, be sure to subscribe to QWA YouTube channel, so you will be notified if a new episode is posted. Thank you for listening. Until next time.